Hey guys, welcome back. Happy New Year. Excited to have you. Where I live, we've had tons and tons and tons of snow. We had one round of snow that was so big we went out and shoveled a neighbor's driveway twice and got paid twice. So, there you have it. My kids were super fired up and excited to go earn some money, and each of them earned over $100 shoveling pretty dang heavy snow. And they are not big kids at all, so they were crazy ambitious. But anyway, things to be thankful for. They made some cash. I went out, supported them, had fun, got to get some exercise in. So I saw quite a few people with the shovel and snow thing. And they're like, hey, it was great. I was stuck in my house anyway, and I got a free way to exercise and do good things. And a lot of people I knew actually went out and shoveled other people's driveways for free just to help. So kind of cool hanging out with guys that are into fitness, not necessarily in a vain way, but just want to be healthy and enjoy kind of exercise and doing what we can do with our strength and that type thing. So, guys, excited to have you with us. And it's really, really cool. I've never met Dr. Phil in person, but that's his nickname with the workout group I'm part of that's across the world these days called F3. I've always heard about Dr. Phil. And at the end of these little workouts, we always open up if a guy wants to share about something or ask for some prayers or just whatever, just get real. I've had so many people over the years tell me that Dr. Phil has helped them in so many different ways. And he's, you know, got just some words of wisdom or great questions or encouragement or whatever it is. So in my world, Dr. Phil is legendary. Again, him and I have never met. There's a new thing coming up in St. Louis, an event February 1st. We'll talk, we'll get you specifics and I'll put it in the show notes. But him and another guy we call Miles Davis are hosting it. They are counselors. Miles Davis is also known as Eric McPherson. He was on the podcast in the past and did a really great episode about something like "Honey, Why Are We Fighting?" or "I'm Mad at My Wife" or something like that was the title. And pure pure gold. Eric was wonderful on that episode. So guys, I encourage you to check that out if you're looking for a better marriage. And that's one heck of a way to introduce Jeff Fabiano, a counselor, F3 guy, and earned the nickname Dr. Phil. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, if only I was getting paid like Dr. Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm excited to have you on. You've kind of got a wing of Christian Family Services where you work, being a counselor. The Fatherhood Initiative has kind of moved your direction, which I think is a cool thing. A lot of times people do counseling maybe as a couple. And you and I joked before about how you don't like to counsel couples as a couple. You like to counsel an individual about marriage or about whatever.
Right.
And it might sound kind of crazy, but there is something to that where you can help somebody work through things. So, what gets you excited about being able to work with guys?
Well, what gets me excited? What just being able to um I don't know, like I've always just wanted to help people. Like if it's guys, if it's kids, if it's families, and I've just seen over the years just a lot of struggle that men experience, and our culture isn't always kind to men. And so, uh, wanting to help them uh, be more of who God made them to be. I think I learned early on personally. I was in a really unhealthy relationship in college, and I recognized that I wasn't myself, and and I kept pretending and not being real honest with my girlfriend at the time about anything, really. Like I wasn't doing a lot of bad things behind her back, but I just wasn't truthful about I would kind of only tell parts of what was going on, or I don't know. It just wasn't I just wasn't really me. And I had a great friend. I actually thought to myself, well, she wants to get married. I wonder if my life will get better if we just I propose, we'll get married, and then she'll stop nagging me about X, Y, and Z. And so I did, and that didn't make anything better. And I asked a friend of mine to be in the wedding, and before he would accept, he's like, "Hey, we need to have a talk first." And he sat me down one day, and we talked for an hour, and he just drilled me with question after question, like, "Why are you getting married? And what do you think about this?" And I don't remember any of the questions. I remember I knew all the right answers to his questions, but I didn't believe any of them personally. I was just trying to appease him. And excuse me, I just remember at the end of it, he said to me, "Jeff, all I know is I like the Jeff before this girl better than the Jeff with this girl."
Ooh.
And it changed the trajectory of my life because I wound up eventually, not like the next day or anything, but being honest with myself and realizing this isn't the relationship I need to be in, and I need to be more authentically me. And I think a lot of guys struggle with that, especially in relationships, because they're like, well, my wife needs me to do this, and I don't want to deal with the conflict. So I'm going to pretend like I'm going to do it, but only do half of it, or not be totally honest about what I really want to do. And it's just devastating to any relationship when you're like that. And I lived it out and I experienced it, and it really helped reshape my life after I got out of that relationship, and I had a lot of stuff to work through, but it just really helped me to see and understand, like, sometimes conflict is just a necessary component of your relationship, and sometimes it feels bad, but that's okay. Like, can you tolerate the discomfort of it to work and get to a better place? If you want a healthy relationship, it's what you really need to be able to do.
That's great. So I hear one thing and I'm picturing this conversation in my mind. So man, like, how'd you come up with, proposing and everything? And congrats, I'm excited for you. But like, why'd you decide this one? Oh, dude, it's so simple. Like, she keeps nagging and nagging and nagging on me. And I figure if I, you know, ask her to marry me and, we stay committed to each other for the rest of our lives, like she won't nag at me anymore. So let me get this straight. You're
Yeah.
you've got a girl that nags you all the time and you don't like it. And your way to solve it is to put a contract together that says you're going to stay with her forever, no matter
Yeah.
what. Yeah, that's
Not
right.
not the most intelligent college age person, I guess.
I point that out only from the perspective of, as guys, how great is it to have another guy to just talk about life with? And sometimes they can point something out like that and literally change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. It was it was such a life-giving experience for me. Like, I'm forever grateful. So
Yeah, I know somebody just asked me the other day and it got me thinking. Like, hey, if you could do anything right now, like what would be something that you'd just go out and do? Like something super exciting, like parachuting or
sure.
what I like, but just if you want to go anywhere in the world, vacation anywhere, do anything, like what would you just do if like you didn't have constraints and you could just pick something and accomplish it? Marathon or like he's like just anything. It like doesn't matter what it is. And I was like, I don't know. Like I've done a lot of cool things and like if I could just grab a weekend for myself and do something, what would that be? Colorado immediately popped to mind and, you know, reached out to a guy that likes to go skiing in the mountains. He's like, let's go to Utah. So who knows? But
Nice.
John, if you're listening, thanks for the Utah suggestion. Maybe we'll go.
Hmm.
But those little conversations get you going because I mentioned I had a little bit of time. Anyway, that's besides the point. But it's nice to have something on the calendar that you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
You mentioned how guys oftentimes have trouble with kind of their emotional state and maybe hanging around churches, like, don't pay attention. Like feelings can be bad.
Sure.
And it seemed like a topic that you run into all the time, especially involving men,
Yeah.
fathers.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like I have this conversation 10 times a week in my office. Sometimes it's with the same clients over and over. Sometimes it's with new clients, but it's trying to help guys, men, fathers see the importance, or not even the importance really. It's the that we all have emotions, and we all have lots of different emotions, and we live in a culture that tells us that we should only have good emotions, right? Well, happy emotions, like whatever makes you feel good, that's what you should do, that's how you should spend your time. And that's kind of BS, because there's lots of hard things that happen. Like, it snowed last week or 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, and my kids were home for school for 3 days, and that was great for them, but not so much for me, because it messed up my schedule, and I felt a certain type of way about it. And but it's really easy to take all that emotional unrest and turn it into anger or anxiety or depression, and that's what we typically do. Those are the big three emotions that I tend to deal with, and uh it's they're just too big. Like, you can't resolve, like, if I'm angry, it's too hard to resolve that. But if I know more specifically what I'm feeling, and that's what I'm trying to do with my clients, is help educate them in understanding that emotions are just emotions. They're not good or bad. They're not right or wrong. God gave us emotions to deal with life being hard at times. And we don't like that. They're unpleasant, but they're not even really positive or negative, as some therapists might label them. Like, they're just an emotion. And so if you know what it is, if I know underneath my anger at my kids not unloading the dishwasher after I've asked them 17 times, if I know that it's really this sense of, I'm not being heard, or I don't feel like I'm very important to you, because that's what's really driving. But my kid just doesn't want to unload the dishwasher. That doesn't have anything to do with me, but I can take it personally. And then I turn it into anger, and then I react, and then I might get what I want done, which is the dishwasher unloaded, but I don't get a healthy relationship with my son. And so, there's consequences for all the things that we're doing. And so I'm just trying to help people see, hey, if you know what that feels like, well, now you have options, right? Like, if I don't know what's happening, the the emotional unrest is gonna start to take over and start to affect my relationships, because I'm just gonna react in whatever way I feel in that moment. But if I know the more specific thing that I'm feeling, well, now I have a choice. I can keep thinking about it.
So let's
Like,
take the dishwasher example.
yeah,
17 times, you finally reached your limit.
yeah.
The anger comes, and then you
Mhm.
say the specific thing. So what might be the thing behind the anger?
What's under the anger for me is, I'm not important, right? Like, I feel like I'm not important to you, that you can't, why do I have to tell you so many times? You know? And to him, it might be that, but generally it's not. It's just the inconvenience of him having to unload the dishwasher. It's not directed at me at all. And, I remember telling my wife, we had a conversation about kids unloading the dishwasher and having a bad attitude about it. And she was getting on one of them because, well, you should do it and have a good attitude. And I'm like, really? Like, the reason that they have a bad attitude is because they don't want to do it. And I don't want to do it either, you know? And so if I'm doing it, I'm going to have a bad attitude about it too. I know it needs to get done, and I can push through the discomfort of not wanting to do it, because sometimes you have to do hard things to get to the other side. It's just the reality of life. But do we always have to have a good attitude? I don't think it's a bad thing to try and find ways to have a good attitude about it, but sometimes you just don't want to do something. And if you can motivate yourself to do it anyway, what's the harm in just acknowledging that, this sucks, but I'm gonna get over it, because it's gonna change. Eventually, the dishwasher is gonna be unloaded, and I'm not gonna feel what I feel anymore about this. I'm gonna feel something else, and then I'm gonna feel something else, and then whatever else happens, I'm gonna feel like emotions are I mean, I think that's why churches address it like, oh, don't trust your feelings because they're going to change. Well, that's true, but you still have to pay attention to them. And I think what we mistake it for when we hear pastors and teachers say that is, oh, just don't feel anything. And maybe that's what they're saying. I don't know, but I don't want people to think like that, because if you don't know what you feel, you're setting yourself up for all kinds of trouble and heartache down the road.
Yeah, so a few things there. So I like the example. I think a lot of us can relate to something very, very similar. Uh, the specificity behind the anger. I'm not important. I'm not worthy. My kid doesn't respect me. I know
Yeah.
that's a big one for
Mhm.
guys is the
Sure.
respect factor. And uh, in addition to that, a lot of times guys just don't understand their emotions whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Happy, glad, angry, hungry. And
Yeah. Right.
after that, I don't
The
know.
crapshoot after that.
Yeah, how do you help guys with that? I've talked about this on the podcast in the past because I know I was certainly one that really had no idea what my emotions were.
Mhm.
Didn't really even feel them because I didn't even understand. It was just very stoic.
Sure. I work a lot just trying to take things kind of in a experience at a time, like understanding that in any situation you're going to feel some way. So can you look back at that event, or can you notice it in the moment? Most guys can't notice it in the moment. They're just going to notice what you were saying, the happy, glad, angry, hungry, like those are the main ones. But if you can notice it in a moment, well, then now I can start to pay attention. But if you can't, that's okay too. Like sometimes you just have to recognize, okay, I overreacted to this. Maybe I need to go back and apologize, make amends for however I reacted. And then think through, okay, what was I feeling underneath that? I mean, it took me many years to realize that me saying things over and over was really a manifestation of me just not feeling like my kids cared about me. And my kids, I don't know, they might not care about me, but I think my kids care about me, and in general, like I didn't know that. Like I just thought I didn't realize what was underneath that was driving that. And, with some people, you can tie it back to all kinds of other things. And, in therapy with some clients, we work through some of those things too. But the starting place is let's identify some things or events that have happened. And what did you feel when you were thinking this? What did you feel? Because um, feelings always go with how you think about something. Eric, my boss, always uses this example with his clients where he talks about the trailer and a truck. Like when you have a truck and a trailer, right? Wherever the truck goes, the trailer's got to follow every time.
Hmm.
And in the feelings example, like your thoughts are the truck, your feelings are the trailer. Wherever your thoughts go, your feelings are going to go. And so if I think whatever way about an event, an experience, an interaction, I'm going to feel that way about it. If I think about it differently, I'm going to feel differently because, well, this isn't like, I mean, I'm sure you've had interactions with people or your
Oh
wife,
yeah.
your kids, where you're like, oh, they're treating me like this, and this is crazy. Why are they doing that? And really, they're not thinking about you at all. They're just thinking about something else. And if you can recognize that, oh, I thought you were mad at me. Oh, I see. It's really about this other thing that you were dealing with. Okay, well, if it doesn't have anything to do with me, well, then I'm good. We're good. And you can move forward.
You got me thinking about all kinds of different things, but there's a emotion wheel,
Yes, those
emotion
are
chart.
great. I highly recommend emotion wheels to people.
Yes, yeah. So what that helped me do was realize, oh my gosh, there's so many more. When you graduate from the box of four crayons
Right,
to 32 to what? There's 172.
right.
I
What
didn't know there was
happened?
this many colors.
Yeah.
And then you go to a beautiful church or something and see 10,000, 20,000 different mosaic
Yeah,
tiles and
right,
color, like, oh, there's so much more. I
right,
didn't know. I didn't know. I thought it was just
right.
the shallow end over here. I didn't realize there
Hmm.
was so much more. So I think that's one thing, is just seeing different things and reading about it and like, oh, okay. So there is more. And
Right,
maybe, somebody that's a little bit more aware of these type things. We probably have one of them in our own home, our wife.
right.
Typically, women do understand emotion, and there's a lot of, like you mentioned, even in the dishwasher example, honey, I just feel like he doesn't care about me or not important or whatever. And
Right,
your wife's like, he's not even thinking about you.
right.
He's
That's
thinking
right.
about whatever it was that he's doing or wants to do, or
That's
his
right.
friends or what have you. It has nothing to do with you, but yet you got a chip on your shoulder about it.
Right.
I do.
I do. And I should be able to have a chip on my shoulder because I paid for that dishwasher, dang it.
That's right. Absolutely. So yeah, just being able to reframe that type thing. Um, and maybe even asking a couple more questions
Yeah.
to bring up the actual
Right.
truth as
Hmm.
opposed to the truth that you're telling yourself.
Right.
I wasn't planning on talking about this one today, but I talked to a guy this week in a very, very real situation. His son talked about committing suicide.
Mm.
Was at school, told the counselor, thank goodness.
Wow.
School did something where they separated two kids away from each other, two like best friends, and all this other stuff went on. But in that moment, the kid felt like he just lost his best friend for the rest of his life
Mm.
at 12, 14 years old, that age range where kind of the whole world is your little social bubble.
Here's me, here's the world, is what I tell people.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, being the axis of the universe, being the center of the
Hmm.
universe. So whole universe revolves around you at
Yeah.
that age group. So dads, as your teenagers get a little bit crazy, understand that they're really in that center of the universe thing. And their worlds, even though we have the World Wide Web and have access to so much, their world's still a small bubble compared to what we experience. So thankfully things happen, and the child gets moved to a facility to spend the night. Let's make for sure he's safe,
Yeah.
put some people around him. The dad and mom go and visit, and the dad says, how's things going? And he says, I'm comfortable. He's like, okay. Yeah, like, what does that feel like? Why are you comfortable in a facility? He says, well, there's some others around here, and I've made some new friends. Wow, all right, cool. Makes sense, being in a place like that,
Sure.
adversity, other kids going through similar stuff. And he follows it up with, and here's the line. The child says, uh, but I'm not comfortable now.
Mm.
So
Wow.
both parents are in a room. Granted, they're being supervised.
Hmm.
And the son says, but I'm not comfortable now. And I'm like, and let me guess. That was the kind of end of the conversation about him not comfortable now. And he goes, yeah, that's right. So as a dad or a counselor, however you want to answer this, what's your next thought that you have after the conversation dies right there at that instant?
Well, I want, I mean, as the dad, like, I want to create a safe environment, and I can tell that that's not the reality from that
Yeah.
statement. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunately pretty normal. I mean, we just don't have a lot of access emotionally to, life's busy. There's a lot going on. We've got a lot of responsibilities and we don't have time to deal with that's what we tell ourselves as dads. Like I can't slow down. I had this experience the other a couple weeks ago before Christmas. My 7-year-old got sick and I was gonna go to work, but I couldn't go to work because I needed to stay home. My wife and I kind of took turns. She took off the afternoon, I took off the morning. Um, and I was frustrated. I was irritated. I wasn't yelling at him or anything for being sick. I just was like, this screwed up my plans. I want to be in control of my life and I can't be because I'm stuck here. thankfully the weather was nicer that day and he was feeling much better a couple hours later. And I thought, well, I could sit here and stew about how horrible my day is going, or I could try something different. And so said, Cooper, hey, let's go to the park and we'll just shoot baskets for a little while. And I wasn't thinking anything amazing about the event before I asked him, but we got to the park and there was nobody else there. It was just him and I on a school day, me and my 7-year-old. And I thought to myself, it was like God gave me this picture and it was, hey, look, how often do you get to spend an hour without any interruptions with your 7-year-old on a school day? On any day, really, but it was this life-giving moment where I was like, oh yeah, I can look at this and be really depressed and discouraged that it messed up my day, going back to that emotional piece. Or I can have a different perspective and say, okay, let me think about this differently. I get to have this hour of time where he's loving life and I get to just soak it in and be present with him. And we rarely do that. We don't slow down. And thankfully, he's 7 and is willing to still hang out with me. If I said that to one of my teenagers, I probably, maybe let me think about it when I'm done doing this, like I'm not as high a priority, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
but with my 7-year-old, I know he's gonna be excited and I just take advantage of it. And I chose to that day and I found a different way to look at it and it changed everything for me because it was like, oh, I get this moment, not I have to. I mean, I got a morning off work, which is inconvenient, but is it bad? No, it was a gift. I just decided to change how I looked at it.
Yeah, so that makes me think about, we talk about on the podcast often, the thermometer and the thermostat.
Yeah,
You were being a true thermostat right there. We got a current temperature that we're at, a current state we're in, and then you say, hey,
yeah,
let's go play ball, let's go play
yeah,
basketball, and
right,
then that changed the whole thing. And
right,
like there was the idea, then there was the physical activity, and then your mind caught up. Hey, this is cool. Like, this is a gift. This is
yeah,
like, what a
right,
cool day this turned out to be.
right,
And man, I was kind of really in a bad space earlier today. I think this was going to be
right,
awful, and
right.
turns out this was one of the more memorable days for all of 2024.
That's right. Yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to the kid. The kid says, but I'm uncomfortable now, mom and dad
Yeah,
in the room in this
right,
supervised room. And I let that comment sit for a while when I was talking to him and I said, hey, he says that conversation of course dies. He goes, yeah. I go, and then there's the story that you take from what he just said.
sure.
He goes, that's right. I'm like, was that he's uncomfortable being around his mom and dad and that possibly you're never ever going to be connected ever again? And worst case scenario, he goes, yeah, that's the one. That's the story.
That's the story.
I'm laughing, and it could be the true story. But I
Sure.
said there wasn't any follow-up question. There wasn't anything to, discover from that. He goes, no, there wasn't. He goes, that really kind of stunk. It stung, it hurt, it had me emotional, but I just felt paralyzed by the statement and couldn't
Mm,
couldn't really do anything.
sure.
I was just there. I was like, you know what? I'd feel that way too.
Hmm.
Like, that empathy, because I would feel that way.
For sure.
And he says, but you know what? I sure was uncomfortable in that room at that moment too.
Hmm. Yeah.
I go, so might it have been possible that your son was in that room and with the same level of being uncomfortable as you were? Because he knows he's being supervised. It's kind of an artificial, setting that you're in. And,
Hmm.
maybe he feels like he just did something bad or whatever his thinking is. But it could have just been, dang, this room is uncomfortable. Like, we're
Right.
not over there shooting hoops like I was with the guys that I just made friends with. Like,
Right.
and so he kind of laughed a little bit. He's like, yeah, it is kind of funny how we lock into a story, a way of
Yeah.
thinking, and then we run with it.
Right.
And I try to tell guys, take captive those type thoughts and question those type thoughts and try to go a direction that is a more positive direction. The feeling and the emotion absolutely is there. But
It
then
is.
now what do we do?
Well, and I think the key to a scenario like that is when you feel the emotion, like, let's be curious. Can we be curious about, all right, what do you mean when you say you're uncomfortable? Like, get some more feedback. Be curious about yourself internally. What's going on in me? Like, am I could I be doing things different? Could I have done something different to prevent, like, just be aware. Like, can you be curious about what's happening to instead of, oh, you shouldn't be that way? Because that's what we do. We kind of turn into dictators as dads and trying to shut it down because we don't like whatever's coming at us. I don't want you to disrespect me. I don't want you're not going to treat me that way. And my wife oftentimes has told me they're not treating you anyway. There's nothing that they're doing to you. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then I have to walk away and recalibrate and usually apologize when I'm my healthiest self and start over. But if you can be curious, you can start. And I tell people, like, even if you don't have great emotional health, like, there's an app that I found through F3 actually that I highly recommend to everybody. It's called In Love While Parenting, and it's all about it's got these 13 different modules. It's all about how to build healthy relationships with your kids and your spouse. And it's fantastic. It's a short 2-minute video and then some thoughts and then another one, and there's like 13 of them. Anyway, one of the things that they point out in there is when things are when you can tell something's off with somebody you love and care about, like, be curious and try and just guess 3 emotions. Are What would you be feeling if they were coming in telling you the story, or you were telling them the whatever? I can't remember how it works, but what would you be feeling if you were in their shoes? And try and guess. Okay, I might be feeling disappointed. I might be feeling like, if I were you, like, I wonder, do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel scared? Do you feel worried? Whatever. Just, you don't even have to be right. If you can just give them the permission to start thinking about their emotions, it changes the whole dynamic of that interaction.
So the FBI actually uses that in terrorist negotiations.
Fantastic. I didn't know that.
Terrorists on the other side of the wall, door, whatever, phone, and I think they call it an accusation audit, I think.
Huh. Okay.
Dr. Phil, man, I get it. You are probably feeling like just tired and bored, and this podcast is just never, ever gonna end. And then you're like, no, like I'm having a great time. Like,
Right.
why would you say that?
Right.
Or, hey, I get it, man. Like, you're thinking there's no hope. You're never going to get out of here. Like, you might as well just end it all because what's the point? Like, you might be feeling like this is the absolute end. Yeah, man, that's it. Oh, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, like I'm either getting this or I'm done. Like, I'm going to shoot
Oh,
myself right now or whatever. But it gets some,
yeah.
hey, you heard me. And it's
Right.
not you're right. It's that's right. Because when you
Right.
hear that's right, you're right, it's like, shut up.
Right.
I'm not, I'm disengaging. But when
Right.
it's, yeah, yeah, that's it. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And then you've built that connection, then you can build on it from there. So it's funny that you bring that up, but it's so true. To get
Mhm.
somebody talking, you can, lob something out there. Hey
Yeah.
man, I bet you're feeling like whatever. Like, I get it. No,
Mm-hmm.
man, you don't get it.
No, you don't.
And you get a yay or a nay. You
Yeah.
get affirmation
Right.
or declination. So it doesn't matter how accurate you are with, and you can intentionally be wrong.
Yes. Yep.
And then, that creates, no, that's not it at all,
Right. Yeah.
and gets them going. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good one. And it does help working with kids and teenagers and even our spouse. But I found a lot of times with kids when they want to talk, but they're giving you the silent treatment to throw that
Mhm.
accusation audit out there with
Yeah,
whatever they might be feeling, and then that can open up the conversation.
yeah.
I know it works pretty good with me too when people have done, not that they know the technique, but when they
Yeah,
just go, "Hey man, you look like you're bummed out,"
right.
or "Look, I having the best day of your life." Like
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
gonna reply to that with something.
For sure.
So that's pretty cool. So you've got an event coming up, February 1st.
That's right.
Yeah, tell us who that's
We're
for and
yeah,
what you want to
so
do.
with the organization I work for, Christian Family Services, we're launching this thing we're calling the Fatherhood Initiative, which we don't really know what that is exactly yet. It's more of an idea than anything, but to start it, we're doing a marriage and parenting seminar for men, uh, primarily for the guys we know in F3, but anybody in F3, or even if you want to bring some friends who aren't in F3, totally welcome.
So F3 is a workout group, leadership group, and it's open to all men. So
That's right.
when you hear this is for the guys of F3, well, in order to be a guy of F3, you just have to show up at an F3 event if you're a guy. Like those are
That's
the
it.
qualifications. So
And most new guys don't want to get up at 5 in the morning to come to a workout, and so this starts at 6 p.m. instead. So it's an easier ask maybe for you to bring somebody with to bring a new guy with you. So it's from 6 to 9 at Rooftop Church in Afton. It'll be a great event. We'll have free. It's a free event. We're not charging anything for it. Just show up. Uh, if you can call our office, I'll send some information so you can register. Or if you're on Slack, if you are in F3, you can hit the HC button on one of the links I've posted there. And
and I'll post a link in the show notes too, guys, so you can check the show notes as well.
yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah,
So
should be a great event down at the Rooftop Church in Afton, 6 o'clock from 6 to 9, plus or minus a little bit of time there. Have you gotten any advice for dads? Since I brought up that incident, dads that maybe have a child going through massive trauma, and
mm,
it's whatever the news is that gets delivered to you as a dad, where you feel like I may have failed as a father. Like this one was mine, and I messed this one up.
sure.
I'm just not a great dad. Like as a matter of fact, I'm a terrible dad, possibly the worst dad that's ever existed. Like I missed the mark. Like this is all on me. How could I let this happen? Um, I'll never have a relationship with my like this is so bad that it's beyond repair.
Yeah.
Maybe a teenager, although this applies at 30s and 40-year-old kids as well. But what would you have them do, work on, think, just anything? I'm open for anything, not going for
Yeah.
any particular answer here.
Well, I think it always starts with forgiveness of yourself. Like maybe you did screw it up. I mean, I have 4 kids. I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And I always tell people that I'm a great 7-year-old dad because I've done it 3 other times. Like when my 7-year-old was sick and we went to the park, like I'm not sure that would have happened when my 16-year-old was 7 because I'd never done it before. I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I use this quote often from Maya Angelou. She says, you need to forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. And
Hmm.
so I think it all starts there. Like if maybe you did screw it up. If you did, let's own it and then realize you didn't know what you were doing. Because until you learn it, you don't. I mean, I know how to tie my shoes really well right now. I've been doing it for 45 years, but it took me a lot of practice to figure it out. And the more I did it, the easier it became. And now I don't even think about it. But before I learned it, it was annoying and it was a pain and it was a hassle. And I probably got yelled at for not doing it fast enough by one of my parents or both of my parents at different times, and okay, this is annoying. I don't want to, but we don't know what we don't know until we figure it out. And so be gracious to yourself, forgive yourself for the parts you screw up, and try and stay engaged. The only way forward is forward.
Yeah, that one is a big one is, you know, even if you did mess it up, like it's in the past and forgive yourself. Uh Chances are a lot of the times you didn't mess it up.
Chances are, that's right. And
Like,
so we got to be easy on ourselves and realize we didn't do anything. Like there's just different things that are contributing factors to any relationship. And I when we talked about couples counseling earlier, like I don't love having couples in my office because it turns into conflict and it turns into this thing that is too hard to resolve in an hour-long session. And but if I have just one person in the office, like, okay, what happened? How did you deal with it? How do you want to deal with it? How could you have dealt with it differently? Can you approach it differently going forward? There's always two sides. And that's what when I do get stuck having both parts of the couple in my office, I'm trying to remind them that you can't have a conflict when there's only one person. There's always two perspectives, two ideas, two good,
mhm.
no, people come in, oh, it's all my husband's fault. It's all my wife's fault that our relationship sucks. That's not true. Like it might be more predominantly one or the other, but the reality is it's both people. And so when it's a parent and child, it's the same way. Like it's not all the dad's fault. It's not all the kid's fault. It's multiple factors playing into the situation.
So say this particular dad forgives himself and then he says, "Gosh, I'm just so dang anxious. I'm not angry anymore,
Mhm.
but I'm anxious about how to build this relationship going forward to help my son or daughter
Sure.
into a better place." Have you got any advice there?
I mean, there's lots of different directions you could go, but I think the anxiety can tell you not to engage, and you got to engage on some level, whether it's you engaging or having your wife engage, having or finding someone to mediate for you, come see a counselor, go talk to a pastor, have a close friend, like there's doing nothing gets you nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great advice. And a lot of times we omit that mediator or additional party. A lot of times I can be places with people and somebody else is kind of leading or facilitating, such as your event.
Right.
And through that, you do, a friend of mine uses the term shared learning. So you're at the
Mm,
same place and you gain the same insight at the same time. And like, oh man, that was so great. Dr. Phil said this, Miles said this, and I took this away. And the other person goes, oh, and I also took the, and you're like, oh man, and it just gets better and better and better.
yeah,
So I highly recommend environments or having people around where you can learn together in a
yeah,
sure spot. And if you could
sure.
do a Q&A with somebody that's an expert on something, like it's so good. Or see somebody else even do a Q&A with somebody that's an expert because you can grow and learn so much. So I know we got to wrap this up, but guys, thanks for tuning in. For local St. Louis guys, I encourage you to show up to the Fatherhood Initiative February 1st. Jump in the show notes. I'll put a link in there. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. And yeah, continued prayers for the guys that are going through struggles. And I pray that Dr. Phil and Miles Davis have a fantastic event February 1st. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. All right.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Dr. Phil. And see you guys next week.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Glad to have you.